What's going on, everybody? This is John with the Truth Crusade, here with my buddy Ray. Last week, we tried a new format we thought would be very interesting. It was kind of fun. I think we're going to try to do this moving forward. And so last week, Ray surprised me with a video, right? Some audio, something I hadn't heard before. And it was all about reacting to it, right? And getting thoughts without having to study and research them first. And so I picked out something that I thought might make Mr. Ray here blush. And right, and let's so you ready? You ready, buddy?
I am.
All right. So I'm excited. This is I got two videos here that you're about to listen to and see. I think is from two of our favorite people. The first one is Miss Joy Reid.
Oh, she's my favorite.
And and for dessert, somebody who really touches our hearts.
Oh, I can't wait, John.
Whoopi Goldberg.
Oh, she's the cherry on top, right?
All right. So go ahead and play the first one.
All right.
Access to on the internet. So it just feels very hypocritical, right? No, why is no one out there protesting for, free the internet in schools?
Let me give you an example of some of the books that have been removed from shelves as a result of the activities of organizations like Moms for Liberty.
We're not going to talk like Moms for Liberty. We're going to talk specifically Moms for Liberty.
Absolutely.
So I'm happy to have this conversation with you, Joy.
Absolutely.
But we're going to be specific about the actions of Moms for Liberty.
Oh, 100%.
Because I can't be possibly responsible for every single parent in America.
But your organization is the lead. You're the leading organization that's doing this. You have chapters all over the country, and other organizations are following your lead. And PEN America has listed, they have posted the list of books that have been removed from shelves as a result of these activities. Let me just read you a couple of them. Anne Frank's A Diary of a Young Girl. Mouse, which is a book about the Holocaust, a graphic novel. Genderqueer, a memoir. All Boys Aren't Blue. Beloved, Martin Luther King Jr. and the March on Washington. Ruby Bridges Goes to School. Slaughterhouse 5, The Color Purple, Forever by Judy Blume. I could go on. These are books that are not only popular, in some cases are classics. Toni Morrison's The Bluest Eye. Let me give you an example.
Well, I'd like to answer your question.
Please do, yeah.
Yeah, so you just mentioned a list of books. And so Moms for Liberty doesn't have like a national book list. There was never a list of books that we put out and said, parents, be concerned about these books, right? We didn't do it because we want our parents to be effective advocates. So when moms are going into the libraries in the schools, when they're seeing what their children have access to, when they go to speak to the superintendent or the principal, they have accurate information, right?
And where are they getting their information from?
You can just go online to a catalog in your children's library, and you can see what
without reading the books. What is book?
No.
One moment. What is booklooks.com?
I'm aware of.
So, John, just for a second, I know it's obviously Joy Reid usually has about 15-minute interviews where she ambushes people. So I assume there's more, but I did want to start by saying, and I'd seen portions of this. This is pretty recent, a couple days ago. And the book she's talking about is a very graphic book that in some schools there's documentation. It's a book about rape and about incest and about a bunch of other stuff that's something that's a topic that we wouldn't share with our kids. John, you and I right now are young kids, but it's actually in elementary school libraries. In fact, there's documentation of 9-year-old kids checking this out. Now, of course, Joy Reid is famous for her spin, and she's famous for another thing too. What she likes to do is bring guests on and then ask them questions, and when they don't say what she wants, she cuts them off. Right?
Yes, I noticed that.
She says, I'm gonna let you finish, but she never does. And whenever they make a point, she cuts them off. She never gives anybody the opportunity to complete her sentence. Now, the Moms of Liberty CEO, I can't remember her name. I know I've seen her around. I can't remember her name, but she's the co-founder, I know. So my first reaction is this. Number one, from what I know about the book, I just had excerpts. it is not. I don't care what context, because I know that Joy Reid likes to say, well, what's the context? Well, I don't know in any context how this is appropriate for an elementary school. And I know she's probably she likes to do this where she'll say, well, you believe in liberty, so why can't a child check out this book? And then if you come back and say, well, parents have rights, it's our job to parent children, she'll spin that. So she never lets anybody answer the question. And what the Moms of Liberty co-founder did was great, is she didn't let Joy off the hook. She asked her, and I've seen extras of the video here too, and we can play more of it. But what I noticed is she knew what Joy Reid was going to do, which is try to justify, which is incredible, right? How in any world we would need kids 8, 9 years old to have access to read about this stuff, and be able to do it, of course, check out books at a library, you and I both know, without the parents even knowing about it. Kids can check out books in libraries and the parents don't even know about it. This is kind of
All
stuff,
right.
if you want to have it in a public library, fine, but not in elementary school.
All
Absolutely.
right. So before we go on to the next one, I got a few things that I wrote down, right, that I thought were interesting, and I wanted to hear what you have to say. I don't know if in that particular clip, this particular scene or moment was captured, but she does go on to talk about moms and people who file petitions against books in these schools, and she calls them this term, serial filers. So I have I had a particular reaction to that, but I wanted to hear what you have to say about that term, because it
So
really
she calls them serial filers.
yeah, because they're filing petitions constantly.
Petitions. Well, two things we do know, before it even gets to a petition, a lot of these parents have gone in front of school boards and have tried to express their opinion before it even gets to that, and have tried to read in front of the members of the school board and people that are there, read paragraphs from it to ask them, why is this in my school? Why is it appropriate? And two things have happened. Either they shut them down and they just talk over them, or they get the police to either intimidate or arrest the parents, which they've done several times.
Yes, I know.
So
I
the
have seen
parents,
that.
yeah, so the parents feel like they can't express. This is an elected board. They can't express and get any sort of traction from something so blatantly obvious, so they have to go take the legal route. So yeah, Joy is just using that to spin what truly is parents' rights. And she has nothing really to stand on, because these parents have run the course. They've gone to the school, they've gone to the principal, they've gone to the school district, they sit in front of school boards, and nothing happened.
I'm interested in the choice of words, right? Because one of the things from some of the previous episodes we did, in our other format, when we talked about bias and things, had to do with the language that was used, right? And so the term serial filers, when you think of like a serial filer or a serial this, what are you thinking of? Right? You're thinking of something that's evil,
Criminal,
right? Serial killers, serial pedophiles, serial whatever, right?
right?
You're thinking evil, even though technically the term serial, doesn't it does in its most basic meaning doesn't have anything to do with evil, right? It's always associated with things evil. So I thought that was an interesting choice of words that you used. I also,
yeah,
going along with words, because we know that the media, whether it's the liberal media or a conservative media, always chooses the word that they say on purpose, right? And one of the things that came up quite a few times, right, is the term banned, right? But the term banned is kind of false, right? It's false and it's misleading, because nothing is banned, right, in the United States.
No.
Okay. So what do you think about that, the language that was used?
Well, first of all, she's completely incorrect. Joy Reid knows that by the time anybody truly checks her on her what she's saying, that she'll have her social media time to
Yes.
spread those same lies, right? She knows how it works. So
Mhm.
we know those books haven't been banned because I've heard of several of them, like Color Purple. It's totally available in my kids' library. Now there could be school districts, rogue ones, yes, that could ban Christian books or conversely ban books like this, ones that are highly conservative or highly liberal might go rogue a little bit and say, "Oh, this is not appropriate." But to be honest, the book ban, violates, obviously, there's a book ban for in other countries for just anything that doesn't go along with the the political
Yes.
doctrine, right? In the U.S., they're using that. They're saying, well, oh, you're banning books, when they're just saying, okay, it's not the appropriate book for this grade level. They're turning around and saying, well, that means you're banning books. No, that's not what they're doing.
No, and okay, so going again along with the language, because I really keyed in on this, right?
Yeah.
I want you to notice, the books that she listed, right? She listed The Color Purple, right? Martin Luther King, Ruby Bridges, I can't remember, what is it? Not All Boys Are Blue.
All Boys Are
Right.
Blue, which is a definite, that's a very sexually
Yeah.
sort of highlighted book. Yeah.
In other words, she picked books that were, of course, she did start off with like the Holocaust books, right? But there's only two of them, and then the rest were very racially and liberally, leaning, right? So in other words, it seems to me like the verbiage is saying you're banning liberal books, right? Banning is false,
They're
first
just
of all,
saying, go ahead,
right?
sorry.
First of all, the term banning is false, and second of all, she's trying to subconsciously say that these people are attacking the liberal agenda.
Well, it's kind of like saying, I mean, there's a lot of comparisons I can come up with, but imagine if they just said, you know what, we're not going to put candy bars in our vending machines for the kids at school. That's not banning them because the kids could bring in their own. It's
Yeah.
just saying we're not going to be the ones who are responsible for putting that out, right? So, it's funny because I would suspect that if you and I went and looked at the books you mentioned about the Holocaust, it's probably very graphic and something
Yeah.
that kids of that age probably shouldn't be exposed to yet. Eventually, yes, but not at age 9 or 10 years old. It's too much for them. And that's a parent's job, right?
And the other thing, and this is again language. It's all about the language that this lady's using. All right. Another thing that that triggered me when I say okay, I don't want to use the word triggered. That made me seem like I'm some kind of snowflake or something, right? Okay, but that like triggered a thought in my mind, right? Was you said some of these are award-winning books, but my question is, who gave out the awards?
Oh, very true. Now, I love that. You ever well, it's it's kind of like the running joke. Remember in the movie Elf when
Yes.
he goes to the world's greatest coffee shop,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
And the coffee's terrible, right? But the guy put the world's greatest. So either it's self-proclaimed or somebody said he's the world's greatest coffee. Somebody gave these books an award. It could be Joe Schmo, from some terrible organization, or it could be who knows. But it's an award, right? You and I can come up with an award tomorrow and give it out to everybody we like.
So,
But
what it reminded me of? I can't remember the name of the movie. Maybe you can remember. It was a Chris Farley movie, right? And he took over for his father's auto parts factory,
yeah,
right? So he says, he's trying to sell some auto parts to one of the customers, and the guy says, well, this company over here has a guarantee and it's on the box. And Chris Farley says, I can take a shit in the box and put the word guarantee on it if you want.
if you
right?
want.
Right? And it's like the same thing. It's like who's who's giving out these awards?
But you notice how they throw these things out and they go through them so fast. Her goal is to railroad her guest, right?
Yes.
Her goal is whenever she wants to make a point, she just throws out stuff and she won't let you. She'll say, "Oh, no, stop. I'm answering your question." She'll do that in an effort to quiet you, right? Some guests, a lot of people have realized how she operates, and it's very intellectually dishonest because that's not a real debate. Now, I know people will say, okay, if you go on Fox, you're going to get the opposite. And there is some truth to that. I do think of the two, Fox is, while it does lean conservative, they're more fair. Like they'll let the person talk, except for maybe guys like Hannity might be a little bit, they have a little more power.
Hannity doesn't let anybody talk, but
you know,
you're right about the rest.
Or Tucker used to as well. But those are your elites. I mean, Tucker has 100 times more viewers than Joy Reid does. So she's just trying to get attention, and she knows she had nothing to stand on. But hats off to the co-founder of Mothers of Liberty for going in there and not being afraid to do that. I think it made a difference. But Joy Reid is not going to be moved by that. That's just how she operates.
So here's another thing that kind of comes up, and I don't know if it was in this particular clip, but it is in the video. Remember, the video is like 18 minutes long or something, right?
Yeah.
Joy Reid, goes on and says, "Well, who makes you an expert on books and what should be in the school, right?" And in my mind, right, I'm saying, I'm a parent, right? Nobody else in this world can tell me, that I need to be an expert on something, right, in order to know what's good for my kid.
Yeah, well, see, if I had been there, I'd ask Joy Reid, what makes you an expert on this, right? We don't need to be experts to be responsible, right? We know when something's obviously blatantly inappropriate, right? It's pretty cut and dry, but she just can't admit it because then she wouldn't be uplifting the narrative, which they eventually want to make pedophilia legal. They don't care because it's a deviant media who does not care as long as they get their way, and screw the parents is their attitude, right? We're just in the way. Let the government tell you what to do, what to think, and you know what? If you don't, you get bullied, canceled. I mean, to be honest, it used to be years ago. We used to rail against bullying and all those things, right? Peer pressure, right? Remember the words peer pressure came out in the 80s and 90s, right?
Yeah, I've heard that.
Pressured into taking drugs, right? The media tries to peer pressure and bully any guest who disagrees with them instead of having an intellectual debate, which is, I think, obviously the reason why the polls and I'm not a big poll guy, but the polls are clear. People don't trust media because they don't tell the truth, and they're more activists than they are reporters.
Yeah, well, again, if you look back at some of the previous episodes that we did, I can't remember the exact numbers, but remember, right, it was pretty clear that every single major media group was considered biased and that nobody trusted the media. Okay, so one more thing before we
you have clip 2, right?
Yeah, before we listen to clip 2, which is it's real short, okay? But here's a thought that I had, and I posted it on Facebook because it was really an interesting thought for me. Right? What are they talking about? They're talking about public schools. So the word public schools means that it belongs to the public, right?
Mm-hmm.
So then if it's a public school and it belongs to the public, what the hell right does the government have to say what should be in this? Shouldn't it be the public? Shouldn't it be the parents?
I don't know. That sounds, I mean, it's interesting how Joy Reid and Don Lemon and all these people in the past 15 years have turned and said, oh, the Republicans and Trump are Nazis. However, it was the Nazis who are the ones who took everything away from people, right?
Yes.
Including books. You have to read this. This is your propaganda. Believe this, right?
Yeah.
So the direction we're going in, the direction they want is listen to the government. They're right. They have your best interest at heart.
Yeah.
These books aren't good for you, and we're going to tell you what you can and can't read because you're not smart enough, you're not capable, and you're not elite enough to make decisions on your own. So that's where we are.
Yeah. All right. Clip 2.
It's sad, but all we can do is continue to fight against it.
All right, let's go.
You know, there are some people who say kids should not be allowed to hear this or to read it because it might encourage them to break dishes and disobey their parents. Now, fortunately, there's the National Coalition Against Censorship and the American Booksellers Foundation for Freedom of Expression, which have established the Kids' Right to Read project. So kids everywhere can read Shel Silverstein, you know, and other censored authors. When you think about it and you read it yourself, you gotta wonder, does this really need to be censored?
Interesting. Interesting. So she's basically, it sounds like she's just saying, you know, all books should be available to all people and there should be no vetting of anything by anybody.
So,
right.
So I got two things on this, and I want to get your thoughts on it.
This is how old is this video, by the way? I'm not familiar with this video.
I'm going to be honest. I don't know. I was looking up videos on this particular subject, and it popped up.
Okay.
Actually, I was looking up. I wanted to hear what Whoopi had to say about this because I know she's one of our favorite people.
You know what? She used to be. You know, the interesting thing, John, is that I grew up with Whoopi Goldberg and Ghost and
as an actor and a comedian, she was great.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I think a lot of actors and actresses that used to work with her have really shied away from her because, you know, The View and just that whole toxic environment on The View has turned her from being a kind of a interesting personality, you know, celebrity who we grew up with, to somebody who is just vile and negative, and you know, it just, I mean, doesn't really want anybody with a letter R by their name who's a politician can do no right. Anybody with a D by their name, no matter how deviant they are, can do no wrong. And you know, as a celebrity, apparently she knows better than everybody what the rules should be for you and I. When we know that society is Hollywood and politicians are, it's all about, you know, rules for thee but not for me. So that's kind of the par for the course. I'm not surprised with any of that.
Okay, so a couple of things, right? One, let's go back to something that we brought up with the first video, right? Censored, banned, right? She uses the term censored authors, right? Is there any authors that are actually censored in the United States so that nobody can like have access to their books?
Not in this country.
That's not in the United States, right? Okay, so and again, it goes back to language. It goes back to language. They use these words in this language on purpose to mislead people. In the listen, if I can get access to a book and tell me how to build a bomb to blow up a building, right? Then I'm sure I can get access to a book about somebody being gay, right? Which, by the way, I have no problem with. Okay,
well,
that's
the
not
interesting thing, John, is that you have, for example, you have the squad, they call it in Congress.
Oh God, those ladies
right?
drive me
You have
nuts.
Ilhan Omar and AOC and all of them.
Yeah.
And they're both AOC's not, but Ilhan Omar and the other, I forget the other one from Michigan. If they could ban Salman Rushdie's book in the US, they would do it. If they could ban anything Salman Rushdie here, they would do it. It's okay to ban that because that goes against their ideology. But God forbid that as a parent, you simply want to have some parental control. You know, why the heck do we have ratings on movies? Why do we have, if there is no ability to vet anything as a parent, imagine if we didn't know that Friday the 13th was rated R and you took your 4-year-old to that, scared the crap out of them, right?
Okay,
There's
so
certain
that's a good point. That's a very good point. So that goes to the second thing I wanted to bring up. See what you thought. Right. So I'm not. I'm very much about freedom, right? And you know that, right? I'm pretty libertarian in that sense, right? So I don't believe anything should be banned, no matter how crazy, weird, or screwed up it is. And I do believe these things should be available, whether, no matter how messed up it is. However, my question is, what type of controls should there be? And where and when should these things be placed? So in other words, I would say that, books in school, and should mainly shouldn't have any kind of political agenda, right? So in other words, there shouldn't be a conservative leaning book or a liberal leaning book. It should just be, this is what happened. This is what happened. This is how it went down. You decide if it's good or bad, right?
Some people are going to say books about American independence are propaganda, and they are conservative, and that's the problem right there.
That's the problem,
right? Is because in your interpretation, which obviously we know we grew up with it, right? But everything right now is, well, everything we grew up with, all the presidents, anybody, take all their statues down, remove all their stuff. They're all terrible people. They're all white male conservatives or whatever, right? But when you start heading down the path of, my opinion and your opinion are going to be different. So question is, $1 million question is, who is right? Like what cutoff is there? Right?
Yes. So that's where the discussion has to be.
The line, there's no distinct line of where me, you, and 10 other parents are going to have a different line slightly here and there, right? So the question is, how do you get everybody to be on one playing field? But we know that's impossible because we have responsible parents, irresponsible parents, no-show parents, AWOL parents, parents that work 2 jobs that can't help it, and the kids do whatever they want. So, where is the manner of parenting and control that we have, right? It becomes impossible when we don't even know what our kids have access to. And that's the issue that's going to keep popping up until parents take control of the school, as far as, having a say in it, right?
So this is what I would propose, right? And you tell me what you think. I would propose, when it comes to public schools, because it is public, the amount or the range of the types of books in the school should be limited, right? Not because I'm trying to ban anything, but because of, like you said, you're never going to get everybody to agree, right? And then, any parent that's involved and wants to be involved, come to the board meeting and and vote, or express their concern as to what should be in there before it's actually placed in there. Does that make sense?
Yeah, well, then here's the problem though, John, is we have regions of the country, cities, areas that are completely different in how they view things, right? If you go to a school board or you go to parents in Seattle, they're gonna have a totally different opinion as opposed to parents in, let's say, Dallas, Texas, or whatever, right?
True.
So the ability to create a standard is impossible. What has to happen is there shouldn't be necessarily a set standard, in my opinion. It should be the parent's prerogative, right?
Okay. Yes.
Because here's the thing. I was just at the public library on Saturday, okay? And the books in the kids area are all labeled for the level of reading. They're color coded, and they have like a letter by there. So like first grader level 1, level 2, level 3, those are all labeled, right, with a particular, this is appropriate reading for a second grader, appropriate reading for a third grader. Well, it's interesting because somebody's gone through and done that, made that judgment call, right? And it wasn't you and I. But all the other books in there, right, are rated and categorized by somebody other than a parent. But but we accept that because for the forever we've always thought, okay, it's really about the level of reading, right? Not necessarily the content. We trusted the schools to put appropriate content in front of the kids, and simply it was sectioned off by a matter of, is this a first grade level reading? Is it a second grade level reading? Well, now, you know, I'm not afraid. I actually want to go into my school library with my child, and I want to see for myself what's there. I think as a parent, I have that right. But the problem is different parts of the country, parents have different access. If you go to Seattle, try to do what I just did, you get kicked out of the meeting, probably arrested. If you go to, you know, a city in another state, they might welcome that, right? So there's such a huge variety of disagreement on that and
So
control.
how do we? So I do agree. Actually, that was kind of the point I was trying to get at, is the parents ultimately should have the say. But you know, in one school district, just our own school district here, Clark County School District, right? You're going to have varying opinions as to what should be in the public school. So, one, how do we get something in there, right? You know, and two, and two, you know, I guess my thought is, you know, as a parent, listen, if you want kids, you know, your kids reading about anal sex and whatever, that's up to you. Okay. Yeah, I wouldn't agree with it,
Well,
but
you have to
that's
get that in a public library instead of why that to me, that's the issue.
yes, and that's what I'm saying. And that's what I'm getting at. Like, but
Because Joy Reid
you know,
is getting to the access. She's saying, well, the kids should have access to it. Okay, you know what? If you want to put it in a public library where parents are going with their kids and being able to see
yes.
there. But
Okay.
the fact is, we both know that kids have library time every week. So you're saying that my kid, who's 7, 8, 9 years old, can go over and
Yes.
get that book about anal sex and all this other stuff, and I may never even know about it, and that's okay.
Yeah.
Right?
And that's the problem. So you know, whatever you do in your own house with your own kid, that's up to you,
Yeah.
right? You know. So like you said, public schools, or if I want to buy it for my kid and read it with them, whatever, that's up to you. You want to do that? That's cool, right? That's, well, not cool, but it's your prerogative, right? So you know, so because now this is a parent's right. So this way, liberal parents, conservative parents, like drug addicted parents, whatever, right? You know, have the same rights. I want to buy it. I want my kid to read it. Whatever. You know. So then the question comes back to, what do we do about the schools? Because
well, I know that you obviously saw, you know, Ron DeSantis in Florida simply said something about, well, we're not going to indoctrinate our kids with I'm trying to think of the name of it.
I know what you're saying. I remember him saying that.
So he talked about that, and he simply said, we're just not gonna engage in that conversation. And they took that and said he was racist. The problem is, in my opinion, is that, again, you have so many cities, regions, and areas. And if you noticed, a lot of the shift in population, people are moving out of areas that they were either ridiculed or don't feel. It's kind of like why we left Great Britain, right? For religious persecution, right?
Yeah.
People in California, people in other states that are getting ridiculed and they feel part of the minority because these kinds of schools and regulations are all towards deviant behavior, towards pedophilia, all these things, right? That's being allowed. And there are a good enough number of parents who say, I can't deal with this anymore. I can barely afford to move, but I can't keep my kids in this environment. So they move. There's a mass exodus to Texas and Florida and the Carolinas and other states, because parents have no control over it. Parents have no say in a lot of those cities. And so I think what's going to happen, John, is that you're going to have a continued exodus of people who have these values going to states and municipalities who have shared values, and the ones who want to stay in places like San Francisco and Seattle and Portland, Chicago and New York and have schools run like that are gonna, have those parents who think that's okay are gonna stay in those areas.
You know what? In one sense, though, it's not necessarily a bad thing. In other words, it's like choice, right? This is this state, this is this city, this is our main values, this is what we think. We're a conservative state, you know what I mean? Bam. If you want, if you don't like it, that's cool. Move over to this place. You know what I mean? But the only problem I see with that is now you're creating more of a divide.
Well, yeah, and you know what? It doesn't have to be that way. Simply allowing
Doesn't
parents
have to.
have say across the board, from Washington to Florida, from Maine to California, right? If you just allow parents to have say and say, you know what, hey, look, certain topics are going to be for public libraries. Parents can choose to take the kids there or not and engage in that and how they
Yeah.
parent their business. The problem is that you have a section of politicians and probably 10% of council members and some of these school boards that don't feel for some reason parents have those rights. Pretty simple.
And this is why a
why there's a mass
this is why a national board of education is a terrible idea.
Oh, it's terrible because, I don't care what people do in Seattle. If they decide this is how they want to live, I will choose not to live there, right? And that's
Yeah, exactly.
make, right? But to take places that are like 50-50 divided as far as conservatives and liberals, a lot of these states that are on the border as far as which way they lean, but you're alienating half the population and basically jailing them. They can't speak, no freedom of speech, nothing, right? No rights as parents. That's the problem. And I hope it doesn't happen here in Nevada. I know California is very influential.
Yes.
Thank goodness for Sheriff Lombardo and some of the other people that are resisting here in the state. I like what Arizona is doing. I like what Utah is doing. And even if you go in some of the Western states, it's interesting, John. I've been to Spokane. I've been to Seattle. The difference is incredible. Spokane, conservative. They would never go for that. Seattle, completely different story, right? Portland, certain way. You go south or east of there, you have conservative farmers and people who just live their lives. They don't judge anybody. They just say, just don't push your agenda on me. That's how they live. But again, a lot of people like us live in major urban areas who, unfortunately, people are worried about cancel culture and losing their mayorships and governorships, so they won't do anything about it. So that's where we're at. I hope people do subscribe and come back and listen to us again, because I think, John, you got amazing opinions on this stuff, and I'll let you close. You got about 30 seconds here. I'll let you close with whatever last thoughts you might have.
Right. So I think it comes down to two things, right? To summarize the whole show. One, the terms banned and censored in the United States are completely misleading. There is nothing banned and there is nothing censored in the way of literature here in the United States. And two, ultimately, what a kid reads should be up to the parents,
right?
Not the government, and not any other family.
I totally agree. And with that, John, we got a couple seconds left. Thanks everybody for joining us. Please like, subscribe, and share.